Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to PTV Live and the Disney Plus Movie Club. Tonight is the 1977 film Pete's Dragon. How is
Uh,
everyone doing?
it's not necessarily the 1977 Disney classic, Pete's Dragon.
We'll discuss. We will discuss. I'm sure people in our chat have very strong opinions about the film as well. So, everyone, welcome tonight. Let's do some quick welcomes. We have Mike Wheeler. He's always first, of course. D&G Explorers, Griswold Family Vacay, the Orlando guy, Noah, Donna Jaworski, Judy Hazel, Samantha Lowe, Noah, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. We really appreciate you spending this time with us tonight for the Disney Plus Movie Club.
Yep.
Ben.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I got to say, I'm so. My supervisor who hired me at my current job left for a different position. She'll still be having some interfacing with the department where I am right now, but she left my job to take a job at the regional offices for my office.
Gotcha.
And today was her first day not being there, and I was talking to one of the guys on staff who I report to, and he said, yeah, it's not going to be the same without her. I already miss her. I said, well, I know she used to spend a lot of time with you in your office. Just if you ever need to just shoot the breeze or whatever, I'm here for you. He says, yeah, come on in whenever you want. You're not as pretty, but you'll do.
It was a busy day here. I had something thrown at me last minute, which is time sensitive, came directly from our CEO at my company.
Oh, geez.
So it was like, oh my goodness, okay, jump, how high?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So I was in the midst of doing research for this show, and I had to put this aside and work on that directly. Doug helped step in and did a lot of research for it as well. Let's just say that there are going to be some things tonight that we discuss that are going to be, I didn't know that moments.
Okay.
So, let's go ahead and get.
Well, hold on. We knew how my day went. We know how your day went. Doug, how are you doing?
I dusted the coffee table. I wiped down the barbecue. I cleaned the Traeger's barbecue grill. I brought in the pellets because it started raining today.
Yeah, it did start raining here. And it's very odd for this late in the spring for us to get rain in California. Everything's usually wrapped up by March. Yeah. Sometimes it straggles into April, but we're here in almost mid-May and we're still getting rain. That's odd.
Mm-hmm. It is odd, but it gives us a reason to stay inside, which is a good thing since we're supposed to stay inside right now
and discuss tonight's movie.
There are other people that come in. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for being here. It's the Disney Plus Movie Club for tonight. So let's go ahead and hide that. And want to get started?
Sure.
Okay, Ben, what were your first impressions of the film?
Well, you have to remember when I don't think I'd seen this movie since right around the time it was released. If I had seen it after, it was probably on television with commercials, which is, what you did back in the day before VCRs, DVRs, and whatever. Those of you who are much younger than we are, we kind of had to sit through the commercials, which is what advertisers loved at that time. But when you talk about a movie from the 1970s from the Disney studios, it was usually a crapshoot. Sometimes it was just a charming idea with a cute cast, and the movies were all well fleshed out, and you got a little bit of a gem that was determined as family-friendly entertainment. But we're here in 1977. The best picture of that year was Woody Allen's Annie Hall. Star Wars came out in the same year. Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out right around the same time Pete's Dragon did. Now, how do you hold up Pete's Dragon to Close Encounters of the Third Kind? You don't.
It's interesting because Star Wars has the pacing of today's films. It's actually paced like a film made today.
Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, the Disney studio didn't play catch up until it was too late. And this film was done in the tradition of films that had been done 20 years previously, but not nearly as good because Walt wasn't around for input.
Yeah, very true. Doug gave this wonderful, he found this wonderful research about the movie itself. Do you want to do some reading here, Doug?
You can do it.
You want me to read it? Okay. Now, Pete's Dragon was originally a short story, an unpublished short story at no less, that Walt purchased in 1957. He wanted to have that as possibly one of his episodes, or actually a two-part episode on The Wonderful World of Disney, or Walt Disney Presents, or Disneyland. It was at that time. He purchased it so long ago, 1957, they were still doing the show Disneyland.
Yeah.
After
that's what I knew that's what it originally was targeted for.
Yeah.
But they couldn't get it written, they couldn't get it right, so they shelved the project.
Right. But after he died, the Disney studio looked through everything that Walt had squirreled away. And so for the next 10, 12 years, maybe even 14 years.
Yeah, I was pretty stretching it. It was kind of, they crapped out at the end of the 70s. They just ran out of stuff.
Yeah.
They went through everything that he ever thought of.
They looked through all his projects and that had been earmarked for weekly television shows, and they developed some of them for feature films. One of the films was The Aristocats, 1970.
Okay.
Bedknobs and Broomsticks, 1971. Now, there was going to be one short scene from this movie with an animated dragon, but the animators convinced the president of Walt Disney Productions at the time, who was Ron Miller, and we've talked about him on the Daily Dose of Disney. Ron Miller was married to Diane Disney, Walt's daughter. So he, through nepotism, was given a position at the theater, at the studios.
Yeah.
And he ended up being the president and CEO for a while.
Yeah.
So the thing is that Ron Miller felt that the audience would be cheated to see a film called Pete's Dragon and only briefly see the creature. So originally it was supposed to be just a little bit of the dragon. So they argued it could be expanded into a film with combined live action and animation, like Bedknobs and Broomsticks, Mary Poppins,
Song of the South.
Song of the South. You know, there are several films there that had that mix of animation and live action. Worked really, really well. So
this one, kind of.
Well, the Disney legend Ken Anderson, he joined the Disney Studios in 1934. He drew Shere Khan from the Jungle Book. He also designed Elliot the Dragon. So, you know, that's pretty cool. After 40 some odd years, he designed Elliot the Dragon, and
that was his swan song. That was something he retired after that.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I saw in the opening credits that the supervising animator over the production was Don Bluth.
He was. Don Bluth, through his artistic eye, decided that they should not use the traditional zero graphic format of animation that Disney had come to employ once they started doing it with 101 Dalmatians. Once they did that, they took a look at the animation, saw how rough the sketches were, and Don Bluth said, this will not work with live action, especially with as believable as you want the dragon to look. So they went further back into style of animation, and everything was hand-drawn and hand-inked and hand-painted.
For Elliot.
For Elliot the Dragon.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
There you go. Your first I did not know that moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, you know, it actually stands to reason, because the look that you got of Elliot on screen was kind of very clean, very simple lines, and you could tell that it wasn't just like sloppily put together, that they really handcrafted this character.
Exactly. They really did. It was so well crafted, probably some of the best pieces of animation at that time.
Yeah.
And that's just because they did it all by hand.
A total of 80 people worked on the animation in some capacity that was painstakingly drawn over large single frame blow-ups of the completed live action scene. This
Now,
process later was used for Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Imagine that. It's like 80 people, 80 staff people worked on one character.
And you know what character was? 22 minutes.
Wow.
Elliot was on screen only 22 minutes. That's 17% of the film. That's it.
Wow.
To the
So
animation.
1/6 of the movie was Elliot. Otherwise, it was just assumed that he was there because of a lot of the special effects of making trees move and fence posts go down and cement steps. I really liked the effect of the steps going down in the cement as Elliot was walking behind Pete down the streets when he first arrived in Passamaquoddy.
Uh-huh.
That was a really cool effect.
I thought so too. A lot of people feel this film is underrated. I'm not in that camp. I personally, I found that there were certain parts of it that were very charming.
Yeah.
I really wanted to like the whole movie,
Mm-hmm.
but unfortunately, I could not do that, and that's just because I felt that some of the numbers were far too long. Some of the music numbers.
There were too many music numbers.
There was too much.
Yeah.
They could
Well,
have pared down some of the music and then even some of the songs, shrink it down. This could have been a tight 120 to an hour and 20 minutes to maybe an hour and a half.
I say 90-minute film.
Yeah, what I think that they were trying to do was they were trying to come up with the 1970s answer to Mary Poppins.
This was supposed to be
That
Mary
is
Poppins.
exactly what the goal was here.
That's why they
As a
said-
matter of fact, the Sherman brothers were no longer employed by Disney, so they had to go out there and find someone else. They came up with a songwriting team of Al Kasha and Joel Hirschhorn. Now, they wrote songs for other films, but we'll get to that later.
Okay.
Their score was written. They wrote that score for Pete's Dragon, and the first song that they wrote, I believe, was "Candle on the Water," and that sold them for the project.
Well, it's a shame that none of the other songs that were part of the score were up to that level of song, because it's a fairly well constructed song, and being that it is about a lighthouse, that's kind of a nice little message. But when you have a lot of other throwaway songs like Bill of Sale.
Yeah, I want to welcome other people that have joined us. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are in the midst of talking about the film Pete's Dragon from 1977, what is deemed a Disney classic, although we're debating that right now.
I give it a solid thumb down.
I don't think it's as much of a debate as it is much of a discussion about why the film didn't really succeed as an ongoing Disney classic that we can turn to year after year, like in the tradition of Mary Poppins or Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs or Cinderella.
The only thing about, I would have to say, and I see why Disney uses it, is the actual character itself. The actual Elliot the Dragon is an amazing, charming character. And I see why Disney kind of peppers it occasionally because of its childlike innocency. It needs to be, I wish there was more about him. But the character, the animation, the cartooning, everything about Elliot the Dragon was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh, hands down, that's what made the movie. Everybody else It was just painful. I just felt like I was not getting enough. So
The moments that Pete had with Elliot and how they were able to take Pete flying through the air with Elliot or walking along while he was around his neck, that was all wonderful. They did a beautiful job of blending live action and animation in that respect. But you can't do a movie based on those simple things and not have a real plot that you care about. This plot could have been told in a 12-minute vignette.
yeah. Now we're going to talk about something, and Arnie has it, and this is Michelle is getting right on topic. What a terrible kids film. Okay, we took a list, Michelle. And with this list, you're absolutely right. It's not a children's film.
Okay.
And we did what's called
no. Let me say this, because this was my baby when I was.
Yeah, I added to it because he asked me, what was this?
When I started a list because I started to become a little horrified by some of the things I was seeing on screen. I call this list High Crimes and Misdemeanors.
We were going to bring it up. This is why this is not a kids kids movie. Go.
Yeah, but yes, it's supposed to be a kids film, but I don't necessarily think a kids film would have things about public drunkenness. Let's go ahead and discuss. Where was that moment of public drunkenness?
That was when Lampy left the pub for the first time and saw Elliot the dragon in front of him. Elliot, charming little guy, or charming big guy, of course is going to look menacing and larger than life to someone who's inebriated out of his mind, who Lampy was half the film.
Mm-hmm.
But when he ran from there to go into the pub, it spurred on a number which probably Disney was looking at as the steps in time of a step in time motion or picture or a number of this particular musical, because a lot of the staging of the barrels being rolled and danced on and all the dancing and suds flying everywhere in the pub, it was nice, but was that really necessary?
No.
They
were adding too much. So everybody's bringing it up. We want to bring up what they were.
Here's what Donna said. The first song just mortified me, where they're singing merrily about harming Pete. That was the second thing that we had, second and third. Child slavery and child abuse. It was obvious that Pete was not a real son to this family. He was running away from a very hurtful and quite possibly horrible existence.
Well, the Gogans were holding onto this bill of sale saying that they had purchased Pete for $50. That, by definition,
is slavery. Yeah, it would not work. I mean, they considered him a pair of shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was horrible. It gets even better.
Not only was it slavery, it was also a form of human trafficking.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's number 4, human trafficking. Number 5 I have is corporal punishment. When was the last time you saw a child hit in school? Quite visibly.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even behind closed doors. That teacher did it in front of everyone.
Yeah. The one thing that you did not see, though, was the actual ruler hitting Pete's knuckles. That was off camera. I think that might have just gone a little too far to actually show that happen.
I don't know why they did, because they went there with so many things. Why not? I know. I mean, you just know it did. Just show it. You could just show it real quick because you were already going there. Yeah, I mean, the list goes down. I mean, the list is huge.
That's a very good point, Mar. They were treating Pete like property.
Oh, it was just...
that's what people did in the days of slavery. Their slaves were their property.
Yeah, and the thing is, that was also the part that we were talking about, the slavery, okay, and then I also wrote down practicing medicine without a license. Of course, that was referring to the snake oil salesman that came through town.
Dr. Terminus.
Yes. So, oh my gosh. And the fact that he couldn't pronounce the name of the town.
Yeah, that was just a gimmick for another song, which didn't need to be sung.
They did not, that song could have been cut.
That's
Yeah,
what they could have
absolutely.
purged quite a few songs, and the songs that you think would be. Ooh, okay, keep on going. We have.
Okay, the list is still going. Okay. Next on the list is extortion.
Yeah.
Now, you said that needs to be on the list.
Yeah.
And what was the moment of extortion?
Oh my gosh. What wasn't extortion in this film?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like Dr. Terminus trying to buy Elliot from Pete, and then they worked with the Gogans to try, and it's like it was all convoluted.
Destruction of public property.
Yep.
That happened quite a bit. The
It
most
did.
notable one was, and it was very playful, innocent.
It was all done as sight gags.
Of course, Elliot, he didn't mean to. He just attacked in the school. He went in one wall and out the other. That plain and simple, public property destruction. Grand theft. When the Gogans found Pete in town, they stole a rowboat and got on the boat and they didn't ask for it. They just got in the boat and took it away from where it was. They just stole it.
Yep. Well, you were talking about the destruction of public property. The schoolhouse being destroyed by Pete. And yeah, exactly. The poor guy with the picket fence that was destroyed twice. The guy who's trying to lay the cement sidewalk, which in those days, let's face it, concrete was a new thing. Yeah. So if he was taking the time to try and lay out concrete, that was a painstaking process in that era.
Yeah, exactly. Then there was and
the stairs being dragged away from the front of the town hall and having the mayor fall flat on his face.
That's right.
Who was played by Thurston Howell III.
Yes. I also had attempted kidnapping.
Yeah.
The Gogans tried to kidnap Pete yet again.
Yep.
I'm sure they had that bill of sale on. There may have been something very shady about that.
Yeah.
He sent in legal fees. That was very shady. Yeah, then we also had animal abuse. Come on. Elliot may have been a cartoon, but he was still an animal.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we also had entrapment, attempted murder of a dragon, and also DUI. When
Lampy was trying to ride his bike home from the bar, and he was clearly plastered. There's no way he could have driven in a straight line. Now, it may not have been a motorized vehicle, but people on a bike who are drunk can definitely be cited for that type of behavior.
Absolutely. But that's my list of high crimes and misdemeanors. I mean,
this is not a kids' movie. So
yeah. Did you include child endangerment?
No, child endangerment was not there, but it was implied through abuse and
not just there. The kid was taken up the side of a lighthouse to paint. I mean, what parent in their right mind is going to have a 9-year-old going up the side of a lighthouse on a painting rig?
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
Well, there was a lot of childhood engagement, so that's why this is not.
I saw that scene. Yeah, I saw that scene rolling out in front of me, and I'm going, wait, were this kid's parents on site? Did they have some sort of trampoline or netting below this in case the rigging faltered? I mean, what? I don't get it. I just don't. It's appalling, just appalling.
Yeah, that was a lot. But let's face it. Like you said, the plot of the movie was thin.
Yeah.
Pete runs away from the Gogans, ends up in the town of Passamaquoddy, is protected by Nora and her father Lampy. That's where he has shelter there at the lighthouse, right? Okay. Not much else left to the script.
No, that's where you get the Dr. Terminus coming into play to try and extend the very thin plot.
Yeah.
Which was just comedy relief. And granted, you need that in a movie, but
now
this is a movie that was just things that were just all thrown together.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true.
Originally, the animators were created roughly 900 feet of animation on a budget of $1.8 million. However, when management saw the first completed animation, they were so impressed that they demanded twice as much animated footage with no increase in budget or extended deadlines. And this was a time in the Walt Disney Company where they were getting really corrupt in the late 70s and early 80s. They were not putting any budget, anything, but they were giving themselves huge bonuses. There's actually a story that I saw outside of it.
Wow.
It was the dark period of the late 70s where the management, and there was a lot of bloated management that were just giving each other just money. But they were doing nothing, dumping no money into the brand. It was horrible management at the time. Again, it's Disney's dark period. The 70s into the barely to the early 80s was Disney's dark period. I mean, it was literally going down the toilet.
But one
safe home, absolutely. That is one redeeming quality of the film.
But at the beginning, he was rather taciturn at first. He didn't want to talk to Nora at all.
No.
Well, he didn't have, I don't think, grew up. I think it was kind of like Mowgli, where he kind of like grew up by himself, and he had to be an adult as such a young kid. And I kind of wanted to know, why was he single? Why was he an orphan?
Well, we don't know. I don't think he knew.
That's what I want to know. Did he run away from orphanage and then he ended up getting sold? There was a little bit more as like, how did he end up being in his predicament?
Well, I guarantee you this. I guarantee you one thing, and that is when this actor, Sean Marshall, took on the role of Pete, he probably never even asked what motivated him in this other than trying to run away from people who were abusing him. I mean, for crying out loud, he chose to sleep overnight in a hollowed out log outside.
It was safer than where he was.
Yeah. But bugs and worms and ugh.
No, there was a lot of holes, a lot of fluff. It was actually very painful. So it was so painful. I actually started doing research on the movie because I couldn't watch it anymore.
It was original. Like I said, it was originally supposed to just be a television show. It was expanded into a full-blown musical after that song "Candle on the Water" was presented, and the Walt Disney Productions actually envisioned it being the next Mary Poppins. They had high aspirations for it. Doug mentioned the budget. The animation was only supposed to be $1.8 million for a short portion of footage, to which they added twice the footage without increasing the budget. The entire budget of the film was $10 million.
Well, they said $11 million investment. An initial release brought in $18 million, which provided a decent profit over the $11 million investment and some nice reviews. But Disney was highly disappointed because they were hoping for a Mary Poppins blockbuster.
But the blockbusters at that time were Star Wars.
Yeah.
Where we're moving, society was getting a lot different. There was such a lot of cultural shift, and the zeitgeist was shifted in the country, and Disney lost their way, and they just kind of like were throwing stuff out the wall to see if things stick.
Okay, now let's talk about the cast.
Okay. Helen Reddy.
What had Helen Reddy done up to that point other than being a singer of adult contemporary from the late 60s through the early 70s?
That I didn't go, but I did Pete.
I mean, how many acting roles did she have?
let me. I'm pulling up my notes here because I've got a lot of notes here for the film. So just bear with me.
I'll just give you a little highlight on Pete. There's really not much.
Well, this was his first role.
Well, he did a lot of little ones, and he did some voiceover. And then in 1983, he did some military academy, this maritime academy, and he just gave up Hollywood. So he basically was only in Hollywood for like around 7 years.
Yeah, but he was a child actor.
He was a child actor. He did it. He went around and got a bunch of education and degree, and then he was done. So by the late 70s, early 80s, he no more voice, no more acting. So his life in the world of acting was like itsy bitsy bitsy.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
he knew what he needed to do.
Yeah, he got in. He was doing it. He was a little bit popular, and then he was toast. I mean, he said he had enough.
Yep.
Now remember, she was also Helen Reddy was really known for her song at that time called "I Am Woman." Hear me roar. That was a huge hit in the 70s for her. That was, of course, the big push of the feminist movement,
burning bras. Yeah,
which actually was rather interesting that she took this role because it was the complete opposite of what her movement. So for her, it truly was acting. I mean, because that's not who she was at all.
Her character in the film was hoping and waiting for the love of her life, a man, to come home from sea, even though she had heard that his ship had gone down in the ocean. She held out hope without even thinking about moving on and moving forward because she had already heard that he was already lost. When
that was her assumption because his ship went down. She knew his ship went down.
Yeah. But that goes against everything that she had sung about in real life with her anthem of I Am Woman.
Yeah. Now, the film that she had done just prior to doing Pete's Dragon, she did some some things, but one film that she did was in 1974. She was in Airport 75. She played a nun. She was, remember that? Remember?
Oh, yeah.
They spoofed that part in the movie Airplane.
Yeah, that was spoofed in Airplane, where the nun was singing and the motion of the guitar hit the IV out of the child who was being shipped for a surgical procedure across the country. It's like, really?
Played by, I think it was
satire.
I think that little actress was Julie Whelan, who was the daughter of Captain Steubing on the Love Boat.
Yeah.
So, anyway, and of course, she made appearances like on the Muppet Show, and she was in other brief things. She's done little bits and pieces since then, but not too much that people would really remember Helen Reddy.
Yeah.
You know, that was her big moment in Disney history.
Okay, and what about her father, Lampy?
Okay. Lampy was played by Mickey Rooney, who was drunk as a skunk, according to our trailer.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you so much, Richard. Of course, Mickey Rooney was really big as a child actor. He was a child actor with Judy Garland in the 30s and 40s, where they would play off of each other. They'd always like, we can raise money by putting on a show, and we can fix up the barn and make it a stage and sing. So that was he was a movie legend. He was, but his role was not thrown out on this one. He did a good job with his role.
He did. He actually did bring actual acting chops to the film. And it was actually fun watching him play a drunk. No matter how much we think public intoxication is wrong, he still did it really, really well. Especially when he and Red Buttons are walking along the beach and having a conversation.
Where both of them are drunk.
Where both of them are inebriated. Oh my gosh, it's more than just drunk. They are just like 3 sheets to the wind.
It's true.
I mean, almost all of the actors they all acted actually phenomenal in this movie. So, I mean, the acting was great. The special effects were good. The quality of the sound, the sound, the special effects, the town, the staging.
Yeah, it was
It was
all relatively well done.
it was just it failed.
It's just the story. You know, the thing is that you can get a really good cast, you can have really good sets and all that, but unless you have an actual story, it's not going to work.
No.
And
Now,
this film did not work.
I'm glad you mentioned the sets because everywhere I looked in that town, it reminded me of a blend of Liberty Square and Frontierland.
Yeah.
And the Apple Dumpling Gang.
It was a homogenized set that everybody just used with.
It could be any town USA.
Yeah.
It was just.
But it had flares of colonialism in some of the architecture. You could see those
Because it was
old-time
Maine.
buildings. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole seaside thing with the lighthouse.
Yeah. And the fishing industry.
Yeah. And here's another good one. The thing is that Mickey Rooney later on, it was at about that time that he was probably asked to play the part of the fox in The Fox and the Hound.
That's true.
He was Todd, adult Todd. So,
yeah.
So, Sean Marshall, you had mentioned Sean Marshall. What do you know about Sean Marshall?
He just left in 1983. He joined the Maritime Academy, went through the ranks and got a lot of education and military, and basically went off into the sunset. So he really just didn't do anything. He was just in Hollywood, and that was about it.
Yeah, like Doug said, about 7 years.
Yeah, he wasn't around long. His history is.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Pam.
But so those are the main cast.
Well, there's also Shelley Winters.
Yeah.
The matriarch of the Gauguin family.
Lena Gauguin.
Yeah, and I mainly knew Shelley Winters from her role as the former swimming champion who was married to Jack Albertson in the Poseidon Adventure from 1972. And I always remembered her as having been the woman who did all the swimming back and forth and then died of a heart attack after being too much strenuous swimming because she was so heavy. It just took its toll on her. But that was 5 years previously.
Yeah.
This role was much below her. So she was pretty much taking any role at that particular time, I'm sure.
Earlier in the stream, a comment was made about the film. Let's go ahead and start with the film from the beginning, and then we can go through some questions.
Okay.
Beginning of the film, we've got the Gaugans, and they are chasing after Pete.
Yes.
And they are, of course, as described in our trailer, extras from this musical Annie.
They did look like Depression era people who were suffering.
It looks like they had a hard knock life. It really did. So that was the way it is. But that, of course, Pete manages to hide from them. They never find him.
No.
But we never see Elliot until the next morning. We only see evidence of Elliot when he knocks them into the mud hole one after the other. And then, of course, they leave that portion, and then Pete is able to sleep soundly in the
hollowed out log.
Hollowed log.
It's gross. It was just weird.
I was always amazed that the environment that log was in at night looked a lot different in the morning. There were a lot fewer trees around.
Yeah.
When Elliot when Pete woke up in the morning.
Yeah, Mar brings up a very good point here and says that they look like Kentucky hillbillies in New England or Deliverance. and it's true. I mean,
that's a really good point.
The way they spoke, the way they acted, had nothing to do with the locale where they were. It
Yeah.
had nothing. And I don't know.
Again, it was all over the map.
Yeah,
There
I
was
don't know
no
why it was
point.
chosen that way. Just don't know. But that's just the way it was. Okay, so let's go ahead and start asking some questions. At
Okay.
this point, uh, Pete and Elliot start walking into town.
Okay.
Okay, Ben, I'm going to ask you questions. People in the chat, feel free to answer questions. There's not going to be a prize tonight, but I'd like to see how many of you can get these answers right. Let's see how closely paying attention you were, how close you were paying attention to the film. So Ben, give them a chance to answer the question, and then I'll ask for your response. So for everyone in the chat, what is the first animal to react to Elliot in town? When Elliot and Pete finally end up in town, what is the first animal to react to Elliot?
I actually like that scene.
I did too. So let's see if anyone responds to that. I'm starting to see responses here. And Ben, would you care to give the answer? What do you think that answer is?
It was a cat.
Yes, a cat, a tiger cat to be exact.
His scene at what the animal could sense. Because cats, like dogs, they have like these senses that they pick up on things.
No.
An invisible
No try.
There was always an invisible dragon, Jim. No, it was a cat.
It was a cat, definitely. What was the second animal? People here in the chat have already said what people think it was, but what was the second animal in town to react?
That's a good question.
And I'm starting to see answers.
I think I know.
You think you know?
I think I know.
Okay. And yeah, Ben, there are people that are responding to it. Yeah, Ben, go ahead. What do you think the second animal was that reacted to Elliot?
Was it a horse?
Yes.
A horse.
And that horse had a name. Does anyone in the chat remember what the name of the horse is?
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the horse. Okay, wasn't Mr. Ed, was it? Felicity? Prudence.
No, but I'm actually starting to see it. I see that Tina of Team Marie Photography, Mar, and Michelle have it. The horse's name is Victoria.
Oh, okay. I work with a Victoria.
Yeah. One of our friends.
She's not a horse.
Yeah, she's not. Okay, now it's here's another thing. You mentioned the concrete earlier, that you liked that effect of the footprints in the concrete.
Yeah.
How many footprints were there?
Oh.
How many footprints were in the concrete? I'm asking everyone. Go ahead and put your answer in the chat. And let's see if Ben can get the answer right.
I doubt I do.
I had to pause it and make sure that I got the answer, what I thought the answer was right. I'm seeing one answer that is correct so far. So Ben, go ahead and give a response. How many footprints do you think were in the concrete when Elliot walked through that sidewalk?
I'm going to say 11.
That's close. There were 8 footprints. So yeah, Michelle got that one right. Very good. 8 footprints. Okay, now, of course, Elliot and Pete have made quite the impression in town. And
not so positive.
No, not so positive. Of course, he doesn't know anyone in town. He's completely a stranger. And he comes across a bunch of kids that are there. And the teacher in town mistakes him for one of her students. But obviously he's not. He's filthy.
Yeah, he is filthy.
So he's not dressed appropriately. And we had a moment where the teacher starts interacting with with Pete. And she is, Elliot doesn't like what's happening. Elliot takes her petticoat and puts a little part on a nail, so when she walks away, the petticoat rips off from underneath her skirt.
Yeah.
Of course, it's very embarrassing to her. But at that point, she calls Pete a certain name. Do you happen to remember that name, Ben?
I don't remember that name. What was the name?
Well, it was actually a 4-word phrase at this point. And I'm seeing someone did get the answer right. It's a disgusting little street urchin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she calls Pete a disgusting little street urchin.
You can add verbal abuse.
Verbal abuse. Actually, verbal abuse was quite prevalent throughout the film.
Yeah, verbal abuse was huge.
Yeah, this film is just riddled with all kinds of chargeable or charges that could be held up in court.
Okay, Ben, some of the questions I came up with we've already discussed.
Yeah,
but in this case, I've got one. Nora and Lampy, the whole town, everyone, they all live in Passamaquoddy, Maine.
Yeah.
Spell Passamaquoddy.
I can't do that.
Why? That's all you guys do. You guys correct me on my spelling.
I can spell a lot of things, but Passamaquoddy is not one of them.
Passamaquoddy. Passamaquoddy.
Okay.
It really is kind of
So why couldn't Jim Dale's character remember that?
I don't know. The name of the song is actually called Passamaquoddy.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, and
so
then
now there are two types of food that Pete eats in the movie. Do you happen to remember those foods at all?
he only eats 2 things.
An apple
Mm-hmm.
and oh my gosh. Oh, chowder.
Chowder, that's right.
At the lighthouse.
Apple and chowder. He eats at the lighthouse because after the whole incident, he goes and hides in the cave. He doesn't know what he's going to do. That's when Nora finds him underneath because she has been looking down from the lighthouse where she is a lighthouse keeper with her father. She sees Pete come into town or onto the beach, into the cave. She goes and searches him out. And that's when I mentioned that he didn't want to actually talk to her at all. He was actually very almost standoffish.
Yeah.
He didn't even want to take her hand. And that was a classic sign of abuse.
Child abuse. Yeah. How do you trust an adult after having been abused as much as he did, even though clearly she had a kind heart to her and she was trying to encourage him?
Yeah, exactly. So he ends up going up there and sees Lampy, her father, the next morning. And Lampy asks Pete to describe Elliot. Do you know the one word that he used to describe Elliot? Do you remember that word at all?
I don't remember. What was it?
Well, we'll see if someone else remembers it. Something else I want to bring up. Do you remember the name of Nora's fiance that was lost at sea?
Yeah, it was Paul.
Paul, that's right.
Yeah.
Paul was his name.
Okay, what was the word that Pete used to describe Elliot?
Well, I'm saying words like green or whatever like that. Yeah, green was one of the words, but the one word that Elliot was given as a description by Pete was unpredictable.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. This is probably one of the better funny responses.
Loquacious.
Yeah,
Loquacious.
So
that's a good word.
Do you remember the name of the character that played? He was the protege of Dr. Terminus. It was played. Mentioned that he was played by Red Buttons. What was that character's name?
Oh, shoot.
We love eating these.
Think sandwich.
Yeah, Hoagie.
That's it. Hoagie.
Yeah,
Hoagie is his name.
Just before you said that, I went, was it Hoagie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, here was the interesting thing, because we already talked about that. Now, Red Buttons was in the film.
Yeah.
Shelley Winters was in the film. And both of them were in the Poseidon Adventure.
That's right.
Right? Yeah. And then, of course, you mentioned the actor that played the mayor of Passamaquoddy? What was the actor's name?
Jim Backus.
And what was the very famous cartoon character that he used to voice?
Oh, right. He used to voice Mr. Magoo.
Right. So anyone in the chat that was discussing that says he sounded familiar, that's who it is. It's Mr. Magoo.
Yeah, Mr. Magoo and Thurston Howell III from Gilligan's Island.
Yeah. And then there was also a character actor that voiced the part of Elliot the Dragon. What's that actor's name?
Charlie Callis.
Exactly. Charlie Callis also played other roles in the 60s and 70s. I remember one specifically in the movie High Anxiety. We won't go into the description of that character at this time. But one thing I want to say about his character's voice was Doug turned to me at one point while we were watching the film. And what did you say about that voice?
Which one?
Elliot the Dragon. When he started talking, you heard him.
Oh, yeah, he's in the electrical parade. Even Pete, that was dressed up exactly the same way, the hat, the bow tie, the exact costume that he wore around once he was
Hoagie.
Once he was groomed. So that Elliot, or Pete, was the exact same look, coat, bow tie, hat, was on the electrical parade.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you look at the electrical parade, we were going to do a little show and tell there.
I don't know if I have batteries.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to do show and tell. We actually have a model of Elliot the Dragon from the Main Street Electrical Parade.
Oh, right. It's one of the Walt Disney Classics collection, right?
What I will do is, I'll tell you what.
I mean, I could go get him and
light up. No, what I will do is we'll get batteries for it. We'll make sure it's working. And if you have not yet subscribed to our social media at Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, please do so. Pepper Tree Villa, I'll go ahead and post a picture of that Elliot the Dragon there on our social network.
That'd be great.
Later.
Okay, Ben, when the Gogans finally found Pete in Passamaquoddy, what was Pete doing? Do you remember? Remember, I mentioned that the Gogans had commandeered a boat.
Yeah, he was out fishing with Lampy and Nora, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, but there was a specific type of fish they were fishing.
They were going for lobsters, weren't they?
Exactly, which is really the only clue that the movie is set in the state of Maine.
Yeah. Aside from being on the coast of the lighthouse, where lighthouses are very common on the East Coast, but still up and down the East Coast, that could be anywhere from Georgia all the way up to Maine and into Canada.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they were lobster fishing. And then also there was this one question. Do you remember the quote after the Gogans fell in the water? And the brother who said this line, actually the actor's name is Jeff Conaway, who was also in the show Taxi. What was the line that he said about falling in the water? Do you remember?
It ain't Saturday night?
No. Something close to that. What he said was, we done had our bath in May.
Yep. We done had our bath. It's just, the English language just, I was having a discussion today with Megan via texting, and I think you were included on that, and how there are so many different variations of the English language, and there are just so many people who are challenged. They say they speak English, but yeah, they speak a type of English that may not necessarily be as proper.
Yeah. So Jeff Conaway, the actor, was also in the
That's right, Stacy. That's right. Thank you.
Now, a couple more questions here. Do you remember this? What was the time and where is the trap set for catching Elliot?
The trap was set in is a large barn of some kind, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was a specific facility that they mentioned.
I don't remember. What was it?
And do you remember the time and place?
No.
They said,
don't recall.
7 p.m. in the boathouse.
Oh.
7 p.m. in the boathouse. That was the exact time.
So if it was the boathouse, why did it look so much like a barn?
It's just a large facility where they get, doors have to be huge to get up and out.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the last question I have is, how does Elliot save the mayor and others when they're leaving the building?
Oh, that I remember. He saw a telephone pole that was about to fall on them. He rushes over there and holds up the telephone pole, and the townspeople all realize, oh my gosh, look at that. He really is a dragon.
Yeah.
And then they all say, oh, he's a nice dragon, blah, blah, blah. It's like everyone was all enamored and happy that Elliot was there, even though he had wrecked the heck out of their town.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to talk about, in the 1970s, there was phenomenal disaster films. There's Earthquake.
Yeah.
Trashy Earthquake. We're going to talk about the Poseidon Adventure, the Towering Inferno. The 70s had phenomenal disaster flicks. Amazing, amazing. They're horrible today, but they're very classic. And if you're a big disaster flick person, a fan of the old disaster flicks that Hollywood was putting out in the 70s,
like Doug is,
massive classics. So there was two really big ones.
The Poseidon Adventure
and
Towering
Inferno. There's these two
both
writers.
Now, Irwin Allen was the director and producer of large, big budget disaster films of the mid 70s. Those were two of the films. Both of those movies had theme songs. Right?
Oh yeah, theme songs of the film after their Oscar-winning songs for the Poseidon Adventure and then the Towering Inferno in 1974.
The Poseidon Adventure was There's Got to Be a Morning After.
Yes.
And I believe the song from Towering Inferno was We May Never Love Like This Again.
We may never love like this.
Okay, so you know that tone. Well, cleverly, the pair wrote the song Candle on the Water as a tribute to their previous two Oscar-winning songs, using the elements of water and fire, the candle, as good luck. When Disney management loved the song, they pitched that the film should be expanded into the musical that would be the new Mary Poppins.
So they used elements of fire and water for Candle on the Water.
Okay.
And that's where the song came from.
That's where
you have to remember, this writing team had written songs for two disaster films.
Right.
Which I guess would then lump Pete's Dragon into that same genre because this film was a disaster.
Oh, it could have been totally animated. They could have made it a cute 60 minutes. They could have totally gone a huge direction. So this is the mid to late 70s with poor Disney management.
So all in all, I would say Pete's Dragon was a meh. Doug gives it a full-on thumbs down.
Oh, it's admirable. Mickey had 3 arms. He had 3 thumbs down. But I did love Pete. I did love Elliot the Dragon. I think Elliot is amazing. Now, just tampering a little bit, the live action, I actually liked a little bit of live action. They kind of took it a little bit different direction. But the live action of Pete's Dragon was actually kind of nice. It was very entertaining.
That was the remake from a few years ago.
Yeah, it was 2016.
Both films are available on Disney+.
Yeah.
So overall, how would you summarize this film?
I'll tell you, I describe this film as having very cute moments, and unfortunately, those cute moments were surrounded by a lot of unnecessary fluff. Long songs, long dance numbers, extra story that didn't need to be there. It was a 90-minute film played out in 128 minutes.
I could not say it any better than that.
Mine add to it, this movie did not stand the test of time.
Yeah.
You know how there's some movies that they're done and they're like perfect even 50 years later?
Yeah.
This one did not stand the test of time.
Yeah.
It did it that way.
And there's one last comment about it. Pete's Dragon would be a Disney classic if it were a slapstick comedy. Very, very good point.
So,
so what are we going to be doing next week?
Next week, we are going to continue with the Disney Plus Movie Club next week. We're going to do another movie next week here on PTV Live. That movie is going to be Bed Knobs and Broomsticks.
Another musical.
From 1971, starring Angela Lansbury and David Tomlinson.
David Tomlinson is best known as Mr. Banks from Mary Poppins.
And also, he was also the car dealership owner in the movie The Love Bug.
Yeah, he was very, very popular at the Disney studio.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
so yes, here's one. I agree about the excessive dancing and useless songs.
Oh, it was just
overall, I would say all three of us agree. Thumbs down.
Oh,
yeah. I would give it kind of like halfway in between because it wasn't completely awful. It did have its charm.
Yeah,
I loved the animation. Seeing Elliot was just beautiful.
Yeah, but it's for me, it's a shame that you have to work that hard to get through a movie. I found myself when Arnie and I saw this movie for the first time at the theater, a mother picked her two children up, walked out halfway through the movie, and apparently that mother knew then what we're just finding out now, that it was not that great. But she convinced her children that the film was already over, even though it was still running on the screen.
She realized it wasn't a child Disney film like the Disney classics she was used to.
Yeah.
She's like, this ain't no Disney movie, and she's gone.
So next week, the Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. So go ahead, catch it on Disney Plus this week, and we will be discussing all about the movie Bed Knobs and Broomsticks next week here on PTV Live for the Disney Plus Movie Club. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This was a lot of fun. I'm very thankful for all of your interaction. We were able to highlight your comments here on the screen. I loved that. Thank you so much, everyone. Ben, do you have anything coming up this week?
I have an episode of Life with Ben. It'll be episode number 50. And I'm going to be taking us all on a little bit of a trip of normalcy in my life on a weekend morning.
Okay, wonderful. And for me, I have a video that I am editing right now. Hopefully that video will be live midweek. It's going to be probably Wednesday-ish, maybe. So I'm hoping for that. It's just that I've gotten a little busy with my work right now, so it's going to have to wait for that. Otherwise, everyone, thank you so much for spending this time with us, and I cannot wait to have the Disney Plus Movie Club again next week. Back-to-back movie clubs. That's awesome. I love that.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
And next week we may have a couple surprises with that as well. So just be paying attention. Watch the Disney classic from 1971, Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, and we will talk about that all next week here on the Disney Plus Movie Club. Doug, anything you'd like to say?
No, I'm just enjoying that it's cooler tonight.
It is cooler here. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. So glad everyone had such a great time. And so now, everyone, as we say good night, I'd like to wish everyone a very magical evening and have a great, big, beautiful tomorrow. We'll see you later. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.